Deep Threat Sports Network, the Splash and Go podcast is back at it again. I'm off the IR this week. We're back. We got Marty with us, Josh with us, and I'm back, baby. Let's get it going. Fellas, how we all doing? What do you guys think about this last NASCAR race? How do you think things are shaping up? We're going to dive into all that right now. But first, let's talk about the race at Vegas. The Stage 1 winner was Tyler Reddick. Stage 2 winner, Christopher Bell. And the race winner was Joey Logano, Josh's favorite. He's going to tell you all about Joey Logano and how great he is. I mean, Josh probably had the best Sunday in some time this last week. We cannot wait to dive into it. But real quick, too, at this race, I thought Tyler Reddick had the fastest car. I don't know about you guys. I mean, but Christopher Bell was obviously lightning quick and just came up short. But I really thought Tyler Reddick had a really good chance to go win this race. Got dumped, had a wreck, never came back. It's going to make it really tough for him down the stretch. We saw a lot of playoff drivers have some tough times here at this race. You know, Kyle Larson's pit crew got the best of him. Ryan Blaney didn't have a good day. The best part of Ryan Blaney's day was pushing Joey Logano to a win. So, fellas, how we feeling? Josh, tell me what you saw.
I think you were kind of saying there that it's shaping up. I think this was a real shakeup. Tyler Reddick this weekend, him flipping like that and leaning back on his wheels and driving back to the pit road. That's not really what you want to see. He was out of the race after that. Jordan was there. It was very disappointing to see. I actually, before, as he was skipping from the grass to the pavement, I stood up out of my chair and yelled no because I could see what the car was about to do. I was in desperation. I was hoping it was going to sit back down. Thankfully, it only went over once, walked away from it. He was healthy. It kind of ruined Blaney's day. Blaney had to get up into the wall to avoid the wreck. And Blaney also had some bad luck in qualifying or practice. It was in practice. He had some bad luck, lost the driver's side rear, spun around, clipped the wall. The crew worked overnight to get the car back up and running shape and get him back on the track. He had to start back of the pack. He was making good headway throughout the race. I don't think he had gotten lapped in the first stage. I think he had made his way up. He was still on the lead lap. Um, we Chase Elliott got caught up in it. He had to go to pit road, go back and work on the car. I think he ended up finishing like 27 laps down or something. It's kind of disappointing for the Hendrick cars. Like you said, with Larson, his pit crew got him. I think he had to come back around like three times. And he caught some debris in the front of the vehicle after, oh, who was it that hit the wall at the beginning of the race? Nosed into it. It was violent. Who was it? Marty?
Austin Dillon.
Austin
Austin Dillon.
Dillon.
Awful wreck.
Oh
Awful
man, that
wreck.
was terrible, dude. When he came to a stop, he immediately dropped the window net, and I was like, okay, he's okay. But then I was kind of in my head, I was just like, man, he dropped that window net fast. Like, get me out of here fast. So I was kind of worried about him. He got out of the car, he went to medical, everything was fine. Really put a damper on his day. I don't really think the wreck between Truex, Elliott, and Tyler Reddick really did anything to Truex for the day. I know it put Brad Keselowski out as well. The cars were dipping into the grass to try and avoid it. It's not what I wanted to see out of Tyler Reddick, especially with the performance he had last week. It's kind of disappointing, really rooting for him. It's not really what I want to see. But Joey Logano won. So
Yeah. I'll be real honest with you. I thought this was an excellent race. I love this race. And if you guys know me, you know that I've complained in the past about the lack of a fuel mileage race. We don't, with stage racing, you don't ever see it anymore. Or at least you'll see somebody do it, but you won't see somebody just go up there and completely rob the bank. And Joey Logano robbed the bank this week. And I feel like he and Paul Wolf are probably one of the best at this because if you think back to Brad Keselowski's championship, I believe it was in 2012, he was trying to dethrone Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson had won all these championships, 5 in a row, whatever it was at that point. And Paul Wolf was his crew chief, and he gambled late at a playoff race. I think it was the second playoff race at Dover with a two-tire stop, or maybe they stayed out. I don't remember. And they won that race, and they really gained momentum. And Paul Wolf has always been a great crew chief. You can never count them out. If they're in the top 15, they can find a way because Joey Logano is the hardest person to pass in NASCAR, in my opinion. And I thought what we saw from Ryan Blaney was hilarious. I love the just blatant and open. No, I don't know why people think that. I was just running my line. Sure, sure. You can say that's awesome. Whatever. I mean, I wouldn't fess up to it either. Hey, I think it was awesome that he did that. I thought it was hilarious. I do feel bad for Christopher Bell. I will disagree with Colin a little bit. I think Reddick had a great car. I think he was one of the few cars that could compete with Bell. But I think Christopher Bell clearly had the best car throughout this entire race. And he was in a different zip code. I mean, he was out there kind of cruising, and he just ran out of laps there at the end. It's at the end of the race, everybody's pushing so hard. It's hard to come through the field, in my opinion, like that. Even if you have a driver in front of you saving fuel, but it's not the first time we've seen Joey Logano save outrageous amounts of fuel in races. So I think he and Chris and Paul Wolf are two of the best, and I think they're just a perfect combo for this. You can never count them out. They will take strategy and they will gamble. I mean, they probably have the mindset we're not even supposed to be here. You know, Alex Bowman was too light. That's the only reason why we're here. If we can win our way into the championship, and he did this the last championship he won. He won the first race in the round of 8 and took a couple weekends off. You could tell he ran okay, but you could tell they were really focusing on Phoenix and went out there and won that championship. So people are nervous with Joey Logano winning this race, in my opinion. I think everybody in the playoffs is like, come on, of all people, to win. I don't want to go up against him because he just has a knack for this type of stuff at Phoenix. He's
just a clutch race car driver.
He is. And you got to give credit to his crew chief. His crew chief can take that SMT data and tell him where he needs to save. They're just good at it. They're very skilled at that. Seeing Chase Elliott, I had Chase Elliott in my final 4. This takes a pretty good lick in him being 5 or 53 below the cut line. He's either going to have great runs and have tremendous help from William Byron and Kyle Larson and drivers like that, or he's just going to have to win a race. And he can do that. I wouldn't be surprised if he won Homestead, but I could see him winning Martinsville. I think that's what he's probably going to have to do. Ryan Blaney, yeah, he bent his toe link, his right rear toe link when he hit the wall, when he slapped the wall, when he got kind of gathered up in that, trying to avoid that wreck. And I thought that they would be more. He must have done some other stuff. He must have hit that wall pretty hard because they never really had speed back in that car, like you said, until he had fresh tires and could push his teammate there at the end of the race. The Tyler Reddick thing sucked. I know a lot of people. I always worry when I see drivers flip or drivers make heavy airborne contact and come back down on the suspension, because if you think back to Eric Almirola when he broke his back. The rear of that car, he got rear-ended so hard up against the fence, the rear of the car came up and he slammed. And it bends the suspension sometimes, and you slam and you make hard contact on the ground. So I remember one of the commentators saying, like, well, at least he only flipped once. Normally those aren't as violent as, say, Austin Dillon's wreck, which they're probably right. But it worries me when I see people slam down on their suspension like that on pavement when flipping. That's
regardless. That was 2 really bad wrecks in this race.
It was 2 really bad wrecks. Those landing on your suspension. The Austin Dillon one was just a brutal hit. I mean, it happened so quick. That car snapped around and went just directly into the wall so violently. It happened so quick. It almost looked sped up. It was just an insane, violent hit. Like Josh said, he got the window net down. I know I've seen drivers in the past, they'll get the wind knocked out of them real bad, and they just want to get the hell out of the car. Because, they're having a hard time breathing. Like, they get the wind knocked out of them bad. They have a hard time breathing. The lungs are burning. You just want to get out of the car and try to run around and get some fresh air.
It's probably almost a reality check at that point, too, just making sure that you're actually okay. Like, I need to get out of this car, make sure all my extremities still work, and get my oxygen back so I know that I'm still actually alive.
Yeah, that was just a crazy hard hit. That freaked me out. I'm not going to lie. And Denny Hamlin and he's alluded to it in the media, that team has lost something. And I know Colin had a high-speed come apart this weekend, and it has to do with the fantasy league we're in at work.
It has to do with the bet we made on Denny Hamlin.
And
of all people,
we sprinkle money on Denny Hamlin. I don't know why we did that, and I told myself coming into this episode I wasn't going to absolutely flip out about Denny Hamlin because I find myself doing that often. But something's just not right. I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm not in the car. I'm not in their garage. I don't know what's going on, but something's not clicking somewhere. There is some underlying metrics that are causing issues. And it just doesn't look the same for Denny Hamlin. It almost looks like he's lost the drive and motivation.
You want my honest take on this situation? Because
Yeah,
I've thought about
absolutely.
this.
Because I've
I've
had
thought
enough
about
of
this
it.
a lot because there's only a limited number of explanations because they had speed all season long. So as you go into these playoffs, you know that other teams kind of they work on stuff throughout the season when you secure a couple wins. And Denny Hamlin had 3 wins coming into these playoffs. And I think this is why you sometimes see like the William Byron slump after he rattles off a couple wins. Is I think these other teams during the season, when you know you're in the playoffs, they work on stuff. And I think what it looks like to me is I think that 11 team, we've gotten to the playoffs. All these other teams are busting out some of their tricks, some of the things they've learned over the season. And I think they're just behind. I think they're just a step behind on all this. I think that you take all that together, and it's the only rational explanation because had they haven't been good anywhere. And even at the places where they run a little bit better, they're still just getting relatively stomped by the other playoff drivers. So luckily, Denny Hamlin had enough win cushion coming into these playoffs that's helped him out. But I think that whole 11 teams behind, I think these other teams have figured out some other things with these cars, and they're showing up to the track with more speed. And I think you see that happen in the playoffs. I think you see crew chiefs working in an area here, working in an area there, not necessarily wanting all these other teams looking at them because they always figure out what the other team's doing. It's remarkable how they're so good at that. I don't know how they are, but you don't get to keep secrets long with this sport. They figure it out. So I think the 11 team is just unprepared. I think they just don't have the speed, and I don't think they found enough playoff into your playoff speed that these other teams have found.
Well, I know throughout the race you kept hearing him kind of come over the radio when they would, zone into that, and he would talk about the car and having this, having that. But man, it is the playoffs, dude. We're down to it's time. It's nut cutting time, man. We have 3 more races left, and you're fighting for a final spot in the playoffs, and you are just limping this shit around the track, man. I mean, drive it, dude. If you get up into a wall, hey, at least you could say I drove the car. I drove the car. I think he ended up somehow finishing in like 11th place, I think, or something like that. So I mean, it somehow worked out for him, and it definitely worked out better than it did for some of these playoff drivers. You know, I have one thing to talk about too with this Christopher Bell thing. I mean, he led 155 laps in this one, man. I mean, to your point, Marty, he probably was the fastest car over Reddick. I thought Reddick actually did look really good still, and I know you kind of talked about that too. And that's a coin flip. I mean, that's here nor there. Can't really make speculations. Just kind of what I saw in that. Do you think if there was probably 1 to 2 more laps, Christopher Bell runs down Joey Logano, right? I mean, he was making a charge, and you kind of hear his spotter and his crew chief coming over like, man, you got to go. Like, you have to go. We're running out of time. You got to get on it. Get up there. Go, go, go. And do you think that might be on the crew chief a little bit? Did they pit a little late, do you think? Or did Joey Logano actually just work this out in perfection?
To me, it kind of really depends on how much fuel Logano had left. It was pretty clear he wasn't running that car hard the last 30 laps. It also depends on, how much defense is Ryan Blaney going to play for you? You know, are you just
And
going
it
to
looked like
wide,
he was, I thought.
are you just going to wide open it and hopefully you don't run out of fuel if you got 2 more laps left and hopefully Ryan Blaney can play some defense. You could see Christopher Bell, he was gaining on him for the last 20 laps or so. I think it was
Quick.
26 laps or something like that. And but anytime he came into traffic, his lap times would slow down by a half a second. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
It's
one
hard to
thing's for
say.
sure that I think that with these crew chiefs, they have the S&T data now. So I think that honestly, I think that his crew chief probably came over to him, Christopher Bell's. I think the reason he was telling him that is he could look at Joey Logano's S&T data and realize that he was probably doing enough to save enough gas to win this race. So I think that he was just telling him, hey, we got to go. You got to get past these people here because we got to go. Because I think it was they figured out pretty quickly that Joey Logano was probably going to have enough gas to make it all the way. So that's another thing that I'm surprised. Another reason why I was surprised that I saw a few mileage race is a lot of times you can kind of see this coming and you can push the issue. But the funny thing about it is they had a big enough lead to where there was nobody there to push their issue and make it to where they had to run harder than what they wanted to. The 99 car and the 22 car, Suarez and Logano, they had that big enough cushion where they could save as much gas as they wanted to. They could really I remember, I can't remember who it was. One of the other crew chiefs came over and said, I don't want to see any break. I think it was Denny Hamlin's. I think it was Denny Hamlin's crew chief was like, I don't want to see any break. I need you to save everything. And Joey Logano was just so good at that. So honestly, I think Christopher Bell did all he could. I think Christopher Bell drove a great race. I think that I don't throw any of this on him. I don't really throw any of this on their crew. I think this is just Paul Wolf and Logano. They do these things. And I don't think
No,
there's a
I,
whole
I
lot you
don't
can do
want
to
to.
stop.
I don't want to make it seem like I was trying to place any blame on Christopher Bell at all because he did exactly what he was instructed to do and he drove the shit out of that car all day long. I, I guess my real question was, do you think that they made a decision on Christopher Bell's team to pit too late? I guess that's how I should have asked that. I, I just feel because I think Logano pit like what 30 laps before him, and I don't know. I think maybe if he could have gotten the pits, I don't know. It seems to me like if he would have got in about 5 to 6 more laps earlier, he maybe probably could have ran him down. I mean,
So
I don't know, just speculation. I thought he was just really fast.
I mean, if he would have stayed out, the fuel window was anywhere from like 60 to 70 laps, from what I can gather. I don't know if Bell needed tires. I don't know if he had done the two tire change prior to that. Um, had Bell not pitted when he did, I think it was 40 to go or something like that. He would have won the race. He was in the lead. We wouldn't be in this situation. So I don't know what decision was made on why to pit or if the pit was necessary. Um, you know,
I just think too. I look back and I think about how like I think it was early in stage three. You kind of hear the announcers talking about how they picked up Christopher Bell's radio and their whole entire team was saying anything less than a win here is a letdown. Like this is ours. Like this is, not securing the bag that early, but they were pretty well wrapping it up. Like, hey man, as long as we don't make any mistakes, this is our race. And
I mean,
I don't know. I just look back on that and I think they lost one here.
you're putting a lot of pressure on your driver to, gain on a driver who's 35 seconds ahead of you. Almost a
Yeah,
full lap
absolutely.
ahead of you. I don't know exactly how much it was. That's a lot to put on your driver. I mean, these are phenomenal drivers. Christopher Bell, phenomenal driver. But to ask him to do that in 30 laps or so, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, that was my point with that. I felt the same way.
Well, if I'm a crew chief, there's a couple different ways you can look at it. Either you can pit when everybody else does, and you can pit earlier, but it gives you a lot less wiggle room when it comes to if there's a late race caution, is how much gas you have. So I think what a lot of times you do is you figure, well, if I come a little bit later, then I can get more gas, all those things. And if there's a late race caution, I don't have to spend as much time on pit road if I have to get gas if we're going to go into overtime or something like that. So it can cut down on pit road time if there is a late race caution, but it's just tough. It's hard to tell, honestly. I don't think that Christopher Bell's crew chief necessarily made a bad call either. I just don't. I just think that it was a rational call because I also feel like I'll eventually cycle out and hopefully my tires will give me the advantage I need. It just sometimes that doesn't happen. It's tough.
Yeah, man. Well, hindsight's 2020. Obviously, we know what we know now, and I feel like if they knew how this would have played out, they probably obviously would have made a different decision. But hey, it's neither here nor there at that point. Congratulations to Joey Logano. Like Marty kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, Joey Logano got into this position in the final 8 of the playoffs because of Alex Bowman having too light of a car in the last race. Snuck Joey Logano in. I don't know if everybody forgot about that or not, but just a reminder on that key piece of information because
They have
now you
not
have Joey
forgotten.
Logano.
They have not
You
forgotten.
now have Joey Logano who snuck into the 8 and won a race, and now he's in the final. So congratulations to him and his team. We gave plenty of credit on this one. I really thought Josh might even have more to say about Joey Logano, but I guess he's going to let it go easy here.
I mean, he kind of did everything I've been saying for the last 5, 6 weeks. End of the race. He knows how to
Yep.
conserve fuel. He knows how to do this at the end of the race. I I
Well,
did
and like Marty
not,
said too, he's impossible to pass.
yeah, I did not expect him to win this weekend. I picked Larson. I think I picked Larson in our fantasy league. I think I picked him here with us. Logano wasn't on my bingo card this weekend, and
Larson just had bad luck, man. When Larson doesn't win races, it's truly because he had bad luck.
yeah,
Like just another prime example of Larson having bad luck, catching debris, his pit crew kind of getting the best of him. Just not his fault again. So,
yeah.
maybe he'll come back this week. I think he is a driver that obviously still finds his way into the finals. But now that we're kind of talking about the finals and the playoff standings a little bit, we're going to give you guys a quick update on how the playoff standings are looking. On the bubble, on the outside looking in as it sits currently after NASCAR at Vegas, Chase Elliott in 8th, down 53 points. Ryan Blaney in 7th, down 47 points. Tyler Reddick, down 30 in 6th place. Denny Hamlin in 5th place, down 27. The final four, the way it sits right now, looks to be William Byron in 4th, Kyle Larson in 3rd, Christopher Bell in 2nd, and Joey Logano securing the bag, winning the race. Fellas, who is in deep shit with these last 3 races? Who do you think is on the outside looking in that has the best chance, or the way these tracks set up for them down the stretch looks like they could probably still find their way into the final four?
Well, I'm going to be real honest with you, real quick. Coming out of this race, I did not expect that our players that are on the cut line or on the bubble would be down this many points. This is crazy. You have Chase Elliott down 53 in 8th, and then in 5th you have Denny Hamlin down 27. That is hard to make up if these drivers in front of them continue just to run consistent. Good luck. You're going to have to win. If they get these drivers getting stage points is your worst nightmare right now below the cut line. These drivers running good and finishing top 5, top 10 is going to hurt you. If that's going to happen, you're going to have to find a way to win. So this is a big discrepancy we already see here, and it really makes a lot of drivers pretty safe, or it makes those drivers that are pretty safe going to have some serious problems, while those other drivers below the cut line are going to have a great day getting many stage points. You're going to have one of these guys go out in the first round hard, go to the garage, and then the other guys are going to have to get stage points and run top 5 to make this type of points up, these type of point deficits up. So I think that going into Homestead, though, we got a couple drivers that are pretty good here, but I'll let Josh get his take on the people on the cut line before we get too deep into that.
People on the cut line, I'm looking at Chase Elliott and really worried. He's kind of had some bad luck at these oval tracks. He did pretty good at the Roval, but prior to that, he had a bad weekend. He had a bad weekend this weekend. Kind of worried about him going into Miami. I'm not really sweating him going into Martinsville. I think if he's going to show up, he's going to show up that weekend. But also, Denny Hamlin does well at Martinsville. So you kind of got to watch
Write
out
him
for
off. We got to quit talking about him.
Yeah,
It's on him.
I'm looking at Ryan Blaney, and how many DNFs are we up to 8 this season?
I think so, somewhere around it.
I mean, dude, talk about a guy with the worst luck. When he wads it up, he wads it up.
Oh,
And
we've talked here on this show before
man.
about the
it
wrecks
doesn't
he
look
takes,
good.
man.
It doesn't look good when he does wreck, and I don't know where his luck went. I don't. I don't know if he rubbed that rabbit's
Spent
foot
it
too
all
much last
year.
season or what.
Well,
But
let's not forget he won this race last year. He won the race at Martinsville last year to make it there.
Yep.
So he's done it before. He could theoretically do it. And I think all the drivers below the cut line are very good drivers and could win their way or point their way in. I don't want to make it sound like that it's impossible, because we're really looking at the best 8 drivers in NASCAR. I don't see really
100%.
any discrepancy in that. I mean, you're looking at the 8 best drivers in this sport, at least this season. There's no denying that. So I would not be surprised if you had drivers that did what they needed to do to make it to the championship four.
I don't think for me it's not really so much about how good those drivers are on the bubble on the outside. It's about how good the drivers that are safely in the top 4 are too. Like those are drivers that, to your point earlier, Marty, is going to be extremely hard to overcome. I mean, unless they have a string of bad luck as well. Those are 4 drivers. Well, I've really only 3 because Joey Logano doesn't matter anymore. Those 3 drivers are just as consistent and as solid as it gets, and you can really expect the best out of them in these critical moments.
And 2 of them are really good at running in Homestead. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson. And I mean, so is Tyler Reddick, so is Chase Elliott, so is all those guys, Denny Hamlin. But 2 of them are really good there.
I want to see, I'm kind of leaning on, I want to see Tyler Reddick win it all. Because wouldn't it be really interesting to have the NASCAR and the France family have to explain why their regular season driver and their champion driver doesn't have a charter next year? I'd really like to see them explain that one out on why they aren't giving these guys charters next year and why they're having to go through all these negotiations and lawsuits and all this stuff. And honestly, it could jeopardize their business with Michael Jordan in the future. You're not going to put that guy out. That guy's a winner. He's a winner.
That is a
You're not
key
gonna
piece for
you're
any
not gonna
sport.
you're not gonna cheat him. You're not gonna cheat him. Um, so I'm really pushing for Tyler Reddick, especially after the performance we saw at the Roval. You know, he really turned it around, and like you guys said, he had an amazing car this weekend. I'm, I'm rooting for him, kind of to give the France family a black eye, but
Could
also,
you imagine next year at the Daytona 500, Tyler Reddick's trying to make it in on time because he doesn't have a charter and he gets in a wreck in one of the qualifying races and is out? I mean,
like
that's a worst
And
possible
one of
case
the
scenario.
top 8 drivers in NASCAR is not racing, and that's horrible. I mean, this is something along the lines for me, like that if this continues to go on and they don't get situations like this under control, like it's detrimental to the sport of NASCAR, I think. And
this
maybe I'm
is
overreacting, but I think it could be really, truly detrimental.
this is 23XI's third year, third or fourth,
Fourth, I believe.
Fourth, right?
fourth,
Yep.
fourth year. Has any other team had a regular season driver in just 4 years of ownership?
I mean, I'm sure you can go back somewhere and
You
somewhere
could
a
probably
team
go
did,
back,
but yeah,
but what they're doing as a new team is they're changing the sport. You know, they're setting precedent. They're showing that a small team, and they're well funded. Obviously, to be driving in the Cup Series, you have to be well funded. But a small team is able to come in and they're able to run shit. You know, when Tyler Reddick's on, he's on. When that whole 23XI team is on, they perform. You know, we've seen Bubba Wallace poking his head out in these playoffs still. You know, I think he what did he finish like? I want to say he finished in the top 10 this weekend. I know he was up there running for a little bit in the top 10 because he had the Air Force car
12.
this weekend.
Yeah,
12.
12.
I
Solid.
mean that's kind of typical of him, but we've seen shimmers and glimmers of greatness out of him in the postseason, and I
Yeah.
Well, and he has his tracks too, where he does really well at. I mean, he
he
has
does.
his specialties, but I mean, you're probably spot on, Josh. I would say he probably averages finishing a race in between the 10 and 15 range. And I mean, and if that's your weakest link on your team, the way it sits right now, that's a pretty damn good team. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
For a
and we're
team of
That
gonna
team
sit
was
two,
here and
built that
we're gonna put him
that
in
team was
jeopardy.
built to be successful. I mean, that team when they set out to be successful immediately with they knew if they had Michael Jordan as an investor that they wanted to give him the ability to win this sport as quickly as they could. So I mean, nabbing Bubba Wallace as a driver was not a mistake. Let's not forget he beat Kyle Larson in a dirt track race in a truck back in the Craftsman Truck Series back in the day. The dude's good. He's really good at the play tracks. And then they go out and they nab a driver like Kurt Busch, who I thought really did a lot to mold this team and show this team what was necessary. You know, the people in the shop, the people calling the races, the people on top of the pit box. He's a great driver to kind of have you captain and say, hey, you need to get better here. Hey, you need to
Mhm.
get better here. Hey, we need to do this. People speak very highly
Almost
of
like a
Kurt Busch.
mentor.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. People speak very highly of Kurt Busch as he's matured later on in his career, his ability to help race teams out and make race teams better. So that was not a mistake. And then they go out and they get Tyler Reddick. That was obviously clearly a very smart move, and that's not a mistake. And they want to expand. I mean, that's the thing that sucks about this charter situation is they want to get bigger. So they kind of remind me of Stewart Haas Racing back in the day when Tony Stewart became owner, and pretty much immediately started seeing results. This 23XI team is very similar. They're built right. They're built to be successful, and now they're being successful. They just they've had a little bit of bad luck, but with the NASCAR thing, you're never going to get NASCAR fans to not side with the driver, especially when their owner's Michael Jordan. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
There's no
Well,
way.
and anytime Michael Jordan's name is attached to anything, it is going to bring massive amounts of revenue. Michael Jordan has brought in new NASCAR fans. I mean, we could go on for days about what Michael Jordan does for anything he touches. I mean, he is one of the most legendary athletes of all time. So, I mean, this is just a really, really crazy scenario. I mean, and we could really get off the rails on this. We'll try to hone it back in here a little bit on a more positive note. Josh, while we're still talking about the playoffs a little bit, why don't you update everybody on your final 4 drivers and kind of how you're looking?
So my final four, I've got Larson, Logano, Reddick, and Bell looking pretty good. Like I said, I want to see Reddick perform. I want to see him in there. And right now, with all the politics going on in NASCAR, that's somebody I'm rooting for. Honestly, I'm not rooting against any of these guys. Any of these guys win this weekend, or they win in Phoenix, I'm gonna be ecstatic. That's kind of how I'm shaping up. I'm 3 out of 4.
Marty, how you looking, big man?
Two of mine are pretty safely in right now with Bell and Larson, and two of them are in some trouble, and that's Blaney and Elliott. I mean, hey, at least they made it to the final eight, but they're gonna have to pull me back-to-back rabbits out of the hat to kind of get my final four in this thing. So, but I mean, they could do it. It's pretty unlikely right now, but I haven't given up all hope. But of course, Josh picks Joey Logano and he gets in the round of eight with an asterisk and then goes out and wins.
Dude,
Good for him.
the fan
I'm not
base,
going to complain because I've bitched about wanting a fuel mileage race for so long that I finally got it that I'm grinning from ear to ear. I really am, because you just don't see this in the sport very much. So I'm grinning from ear to ear. I thought it was a great race.
the fan base is going to have a meltdown if he
Yes, they
wins
will.
in Phoenix, man. It's
It
not.
will. I want him to do it. I want him to shove NASCAR's cruddy playoff system in their face. Show the loopholes. I love it.
They'll forever hold it, like you said, an asterisk next to it if he wins this championship, and people won't forget it.
Oh
They'll
well,
always
he's
hold it
already
against
won
him.
two.
But it's
Oh
nothing
well.
yeah, I mean, him and Larson have won the most races in the playoffs so far. So
Well, what blows
Yeah.
my mind though is people sitting here like when people complain about the structure and stuff. I get it. We all want different ways for things, and I understand that may not be the best structure. But you can never blame the athlete, the driver, whoever. All they did was go out and do what they were supposed to do and took care of business
Yeah.
and did it exactly how they were instructed to do. So I mean, people blaming the athletes and the drivers drives me absolutely insane. So hey, good for Joey Logano. He got in. No matter how he did it, he doesn't care about how he got in. He's in, he wins, and he may win the whole damn thing. He's in the driver's seat, pun intended. But my
yeah,
final four drivers are William Byron, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Tyler Reddick. So the way it sits right now, I'm sitting 3 out of 4 as well. And as a show, I'm not very good at math, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we are sitting at, what is that, 8 out of 12? So I mean, 8 out of 12 for the final four on our picks. If we all have 4 picks and
Yeah.
four go, that's 12 total picks, and we're sitting at 8. That's pretty damn good, fellas. I mean, that's something to talk about here. So things look really good for us. Marty's got to have a couple things go his way, and he'll be at the 3 out of 4 mark as well. Anything's up for grabs at this point. It's the sport of NASCAR. A win and you're in, baby. A lot of things can change. So let's kind of transition now into what we have coming up this weekend. We have the Straight Talk Wireless 400 at Homestead, Miami. This is a 1.5-mile track with 18 to 20 degree progressive banking. What do you guys think needs to happen here for, any of these drivers to make a push, any of these 4 outside to get in? What kind of strategy? I mean, is this a fuel saving track, Marty, like you're kind of wanting? What is the strategy going into this really?
You got to run the boards here, and you got to run the boards well. So you're going to have to beat people by getting good runs exiting the corner, coming off the corners. You're going to have to be in the throttle. You're going to have to find the most grip to be in the throttle the longest on the high line, running right against the wall. And whoever gets back to the throttle and can hold it wide open before, if there's somebody in front of you, if you can get back to the throttle before he can, you're going to get a good run down these straightaways because they're straight and they're long. And so then that gives you the opportunity to dive bomb. So you are going to see some dive bombs here for sure, but you're going to have to, this is where the people who are good at running the boards can really cut their teeth. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago. It was after Bubba Wallace got suspended because the incident with Larson at, I think, Kansas. Anyways, Larson went out there and just ran an inch from the wall the entire race and just beat down the field. I don't know if you'll necessarily see that. That was one of the greatest drives I've ever seen in my life. So, and I know people give us a hard time and give everybody a hard time for Glazen Larson, but hey, the dude's a talent, okay? But who else can do
who's
that?
giving us a hard time? Who's giving us a hard time?
Not us, but people give the sport a hard time for Glazen Larson, and I'm
For
sorry.
Glazing the best athlete in the sport. I mean,
Yeah.
if we didn't talk about him, we'd look like dipshits.
I agree. But who else could run the boards?
Generational
really
driver.
Is Tyler Reddick. I think Tyler Reddick's the second best, probably at running the boards, in my opinion. And then I could also throw Christopher Bell up there. He's really good. I was going to
say
imagine
Christopher
that.
Bell can
Dirt
run
track
that
drivers. Imagine that. So Joey Logano's won a championship by having to outdrive other drivers here at Homestead. So he's very good here. So that's what you're going to have to see at this track is grip levels. You're going to have to search for grip, and you're going to have to search for grip up against the wall. And a lot of times who can run a little bit higher. And you wouldn't believe that running that much higher than the person in front of you makes that big of a difference. But if you have the ability to do it, I think the air coming off the wall on your right rear spoiler and the fact that not as many people drive that close to the wall, that there is a little bit more grip for your right rear in the corner, it pays off. It's remarkable to watch. I love this track. I wish it was still the championship track. It's too bad that we've lost it. Everybody loves this track. This track has really turned into a gem. And this is why people kind of wonder, like, why do they patch? Why do they not
Yeah.
repave tracks more often? This is why tracks get character as time goes on. As the surface gets worn out, the surface is worn out here. And as time goes on, the search for grip makes great racing. The key to great oval racing is the search for grip. That's why I'm not a big fan of the wider tire. That's why I'm not a fan of drivers not having to, search for grip, using their throttle, using different lines, saving your tire. You naturally get tire fall off when you get a lot of worn out tracks and stuff like that. So I like this track. The search for grip is fun to watch. And whoever crew chief can help their car. The key here is obviously you don't want to be tight, but loose will kill you. I mean, loose, if you're too loose here, you don't want to be getting into the wall. You don't want to break a rear tail link or something because you're going to be right on the wall. Now, typically, the closer you are to the wall, the less it hurts your car, but you can still easily get in the wall here and really hurt your vehicle. So, but loose is fast. So that's why the dirt track drivers, that's why you see drivers like Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell. That's why you see them have so much success here. They can take a looser car, they can find that grip, and they can make the most of it. And I feel like they can also just get away when it comes to a car control level. They can just get away with a lot more than some of these other drivers can. They can just save a vehicle that's out of control without ever hitting the wall, and it's remarkable. So
Well,
I
being
love this
loose
track.
doesn't
I'm
scare
excited.
them as much, right? I mean, being loose doesn't scare them quite as much
They're
as it
used
does.
to rolling over the right, cutting off the right rear. I mean, that's what you do on a dirt track. You know what I mean? You kick her in there, and you're waiting to get to a point where you can cut off your right rear for exiting the corner, and that really shines here. So I love watching this race.
So, Josh, I have a question for you. Obviously, other than the obvious of Joey Logano securing it with the win and being into the finals, what kind of advantage does he have going into this race? I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to sandbag, but does he kind of sit back and work on some things, try to get things right for the championship race? I mean, does he do any of that? Does he push pace and try to win another one? I mean, what do you think are the advantages or for Joey Logano here?
I mean, obviously the advantage is he's going to Phoenix. He's won at Miami in the past. He won a championship here, didn't he?
Yeah, he's won a championship at Homestead and at Phoenix. His last one
Yeah.
was at Phoenix, and he had 2 races to prepare for it. So I think he does the same thing.
That's kind of what I'm
It worked
wondering. Like,
last time.
does he really prepare like mainly for that championship race? I mean, that's just
No,
kind of what I'm asking.
he's going out to win every weekend. All these guys are, look at Ricky Stenhouse earlier in the playoffs, went out, got a win at where was that? Was that Dega?
Yep.
Yeah, he got a win at Dega. It doesn't matter if they're in the playoffs or not. It would be kind of nice to see him return the favor to Ryan Blaney if he has a chance, but I think we can all agree that Joey Logano is really not that kind of driver.
I disagree
But
a little bit. Just,
well,
just, just for the fact that I think if he unloads off the truck and they have speed to run up front, I think he's absolutely going to do that. But just knowing Paul Wolf and knowing that this worked out for him last time, I think they have a game plan for sure. And I think if Joey Logano shows up to the track, he's a little bit slower, and Paul goes, "Don't worry, we're working on something." Honestly, what I think happens a lot, I think they try things out and be like, "Let's make sure we can get this past Tech before we go to Phoenix."
yeah.
I think there's a lot of that goes on in the playoffs, and then I think you figure out what passes Tech, what your intolerance with, what you're allowed to do, and then you cobble that all together for Phoenix. And I think they're a huge advantage by not having to show up with blistering speed this weekend. I think it opens up a whole windows of opportunities from a standpoint for car setup and for passing. Passing Tech's tough in this sport. When you try to find speed in cars, you have to kind of be on the wild side. And you hear drivers say all the time, "I don't want to race for a team if they're not trying to push those boundaries because I'm a suck. I'm not going to have a car as good as everybody else, as somebody else out there. I want my crew chief, pushing the button there a little bit, and I think it puts them in a great spot. If I'm these other drivers, this is worst possible case scenario. When Joe Logano made it to the round of 8, was I could see him going out and winning Vegas, man, because he's done it before, and they're dangerous. They are very dangerous.
And that was kind of my thoughts. I rightfully so. I agree with that. I'm not obviously I don't think he's going to sandbag, but I think this is like where they truly work on things and dial it in for the final race. And I feel like that is just rather than already being in, that's just a clear cut advantage. I mean, that makes it so much more easy for the task at hand. Obviously, he still has to go finish top in that race, but this really helps him get right, even more so than what he already is.
For sure.
All right, so speaking of Homestead, Miami, it's time to make our picks. But first, I want to talk about how let's score another one for the Ronald McDonald House. Christopher Bell last week. The boys locked my pick in for me, took real good care of me, making the right pick for me. I appreciate you fellas on that one. So, Josh, I'm going to kick it to you first. Who are you picking this weekend?
I'm going to go with the 45 car, Tyler Reddick. Does well at Miami, and right now, just kind of being an echo chamber of myself with what's going on with NASCAR, I'd really like to see him stick it to the man.
Hey,
So,
pick for the guy you're cheering for, baby. I love it.
kind of beating myself up, all this hype about Joey Logano and him whistling in to the round of 8. I probably should have picked him last week, but you know, good for
Hey,
Ronald
Well,
can't
McDonald
cry over
House.
spilled milk, baby. Can't cry
yeah,
over spilled milk.
good problem to have. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with
Marty, yeah, give me yours, big
I'm gonna
dog.
go with the best driver at this track, in my opinion. He just is always blistering faster. I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson. I'd be silly. I'd be silly to not pick him.
Didn't see that
there's
one coming.
right. Well, I mean,
Are you
there's certain.
glazing him? Are you glazing him?
Oh, here I go. Here I go. Beat me up. I would enjoy somebody to beat me up in the comments. Please do. But there's certain athletes in certain sports you get them in certain situations, and you're silly to not have full confidence in them. And he's at this time at this track. That team, Cliff Daniels, they've won here before. They've dominated here before. Even when he was back at Chip Ganassi Racing, this is where I think people really saw his talent level. He would lead a lot of laps here on cars that were just ridiculously loose. Running that high line, it showcased his talent really well early in his career. So I'm going to go with Kyle Larson. I feel I'd be silly not to if I had the opportunity. So,
Well, I'll be honest with you guys. Those are my first two picks as well here. So now I feel like I'm obligated to go with the guy that I picked to win the whole damn thing weeks ago when we started up Splash and Go, and I'm going to pick William Byron. I have a question about William Byron here for you guys as well. Why does this guy not get talked about more? I mean, he is as consistent as it gets, I feel like. I mean, ran up front this race, had a good finish, always has a good fast car, good team, great driver. I mean, I guess I'm just missing something. Maybe I'm the one glazing William Byron. I mean, if we want to call it that, because I'm always talking about him, and I'm going to pick him again. I'm going to ride this train. He looks incredible to me right now.
they haven't been super flashy as of late. I mean, you're right. They've been super consistent, but they haven't been super flashy as of late. So that's probably why they don't get talked to as much. But you certainly cannot count this team out by any means.
No, I mean his name's out of the headlines for good and bad reasons. I mean he's not wadding it up, not causing problems out on the track, just driving, man. He's literally just driving.
I will say it with 4 cars in the under the Hendrick helm. It's kind of hard to outshine Chase Elliott, who's NASCAR's favorite driver, as they say, and Kyle Larson, America's favorite driver. So it's got to be hard for people like him and Bowman. I had that weight issue not happen last week, there very well could have been a chance. We had 400 cars in the top 4. So like, which one do you talk about? Which one do you cover more? And not to say he's playing second fiddle to any of those guys, but he really, like Marty said, he hasn't been flashy. There really hasn't been much going on. He did well this weekend. I just don't know why he's not covered as much. People didn't take Bowman seriously either. I didn't. I didn't take him serious at all. I was always shaking my
No,
head
I
at
didn't either.
Marty. I had him out in the first round, and I had him out in the next round. And then he puts himself out. So it's I don't know what it is. I think Hendricks has their 2 superstars, and it's trying to build 2 more drivers, and a Byron Bowman, 2 Bs. I don't know.
Well, to
We're
your
probably
point here,
talking
both of your
to
guys'
more.
point here. Go ahead,
We're
Marty.
probably
Sorry.
talking about it more if Joe Logano doesn't go out and win this race.
Yeah.
In fairness, so
Mhm.
Well, I
that
think why I want him to do so well and why I keep thinking he's going to do so well is because of the points that you both just made. All he hears about is Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. And I think William Byron wants this more than anybody, honestly. I don't think he's obviously going to come out and talk about how his own two teammates getting all the publicity is frustrating for him. But I think internally that probably eats at him a little bit because he's probably sitting back like, man, look what I'm doing. And nobody talks about me. So I'm just going to go win this damn thing and make them have to talk about me at this point. And that's why I want to give this to William Byron as well. And I do think he can run the boards as well here too. I think he is a great driver, and I'm really big on William Byron. So yeah, there's my glazing session on William Byron since we're talking about glazing.
He's not super controversial,
No, he stays
also,
out of the headlines.
yeah, he's quiet, cool, calm, and collected, which is a good thing, but maybe show some attitude out there on the track. I don't know. Maybe punch somebody in the face.
Maybe take Denny Hamlin out this week just for shits and
Mhm.
grins. Hell, that'll get his name in there. But hey, fellas, we're gonna kick it on over to our too fast exiting here. I know earlier you guys kind of got started a little bit about the Reddick situation, not having a charter for next year, and how this could all shape up, and how this is a really bad look for NASCAR. So if you guys want to get into that a little bit more, hey, now's the time. If you guys have something else you want to get to here, let's get after it.
Yeah, I got something. Dale Jr. back in the Budweiser 8.
That's
Let's
right,
go.
baby.
Let's
That's
go.
right.
I mean, I set that as my background for a reason. And I saw even on one of his thumbnails, they used the same picture. So I was a huge Junior fan growing up. And when I look back at nostalgic wins and the nostalgic paint schemes, it's that Bud 8 car. So I always watch his old wins on YouTube. I watch the complete race. I do it all the time. Not to say that he didn't have some good looking and iconic cars with the 88 team, but when I really think of the 8 car, let's be honest here, that was his dad created that team. So his dad was tied to that team. His dad was tied to that car. He was tied to that car. And when his dad wasn't here anymore, we lived through Earnhardt Sr. through that team and through that car. And so as an Earnhardt fan, it's great that we get to see that paint scheme back, even if it's not, in a cup car, who cares? It's just cool to see. And another thing that I'll go in my too fast exiting, I just heard that Teresa Earnhardt's going to sell her property that she had, or she may be hanging on to, but she plans on turning it into an industrial park. And that makes me sick to my stomach because it's clear that Dale Earnhardt built all this for his kids. He built that team for his kids. He had all that property. All that was supposed to be a legacy for his children. And unfortunately, he just didn't live long enough to be able to make sure that happened. So we get a win there and a loss there, but being able to see that Bud 8 car back again, I'll definitely be trying to make sure that I see that. I'm very excited about that.
All love for Junior, baby. All love for Junior.
So I'm going to hit you with one here. I don't know if you guys followed any of the Truck Series news. Mr. Malcolm in the Middle, Frankie Muniz, is getting a truck next year. He's going to be racing full time in the Menards Truck Series. Excited about it. He's finally got himself a shot. Driving full time for somebody. He's been trying for years. He's very passionate about the sport, and it kind of brings a little light to the sport. It kind of turns maybe some more casual people onto the sport, and it's pretty exciting. Also today, Bobby Allison got awarded his 85th win, which is pretty awesome. They gave him a placard. They officially gave him his win, and I think that was pretty cool news to hear today. So that's really all I got on Too Fast Exiting. Really looking forward to this weekend at Miami, and that's about all I got, fellas.
All right, fellas. Well, hey, this has been tons of fun. Make sure you guys tune in this weekend at the Straight Talk Wireless 400 at Homestead, Miami. This is going to be an absolute banger. That's what we would classify as a banger. This is going to be extremely exciting racing. I know Marty and Josh are fired up. I'm fired up. We cannot wait to get there. Let's hope for some good racing, good things, all good vibes going into this one. Let's have the 8 playoff drivers have a good, safe race. Make sure the teams are all in good standings and pushing pace all race long. Cannot wait for this one. We will get back with you guys next week. We're going to review Homestead Miami, dive into the next race. We're running out of time here, guys. This has been tons of fun. The playoffs have been fantastic. Once again, we're going to talk about it right here one more time. Josh is fired up for Joey Logano. He loves his boy, fanboy Josh. We love it. But hey, follow us on X at DT_sports_. TikTok, Deep Threat Sports Network. Facebook, Deep Threat Sports Network. Instagram, Deep Threat Sports with a Z. Spotify, Deep Threat Sports. YouTube, Deep Threat Sports. Leave a comment, subscribe, like, show us some love. Tell us what we're doing bad. Tell me that my picks suck. Tell me that they're great. Whatever you guys think out there. Tell me that I'm glazing Byron too much, that Marty's glazing Kyle Larson too much, and Josh is glazing Joey Logano. We all got our guys, so let us know. Tell us that we ride them too hard. But hey, fellas, until next time, peace.
Hi, Leon.